I was the princess of the city's elite. Less than a year after marrying a rising figure in the city's elite, he went bankrupt. After our divorce, I had a vivid premonition of the future and sought him out to remarry. But he frowned, his thin lips uttering a cold rejection. I'm sorry, Ms. Grace. The residence has fallen. I'm not worthy of someone as formidable as you. Standing beside him was his childhood friend, her smile jarring. I traced my abdomen, forcing an awkward smile. All right then, should I find a different father for the baby? His pupils contracted sharply, a stormy ocean brewing in his eyes. Say that again? I was sent to the abortion clinic. The frigid operating table stimulated all my senses. Suddenly, unfamiliar scenes flashed before me. In them, I had married a man who moved into our family home for a second marriage, as arranged by my parents. Less than 6 months later, my parents died in a car accident, and my husband threw me abroad. Penniless, I wandered the streets, so hungry I resorted to rummaging through garbage for food. The stench of rot and sourness, the greasy, filthy touch, filled me with suffocation and despair. Finally, a passing homeless man snatched the spoiled food from my hand and pushed me down. Snow fell relentlessly, covering my emaciated body as I lay motionless, until I was completely buried. The image froze permanently. Just then, the surgical lights flickered on. Hello, relax your legs, the nurse's voice seemed to come from afar. I jolted upright with a start, my throat catching. I am sorry, I don't want to do it. Stepping out of the operating room, Catherine grabbed my arm. Grace? Is it over already? No. I shook my head, still rattled, tears streaming down my face. Mom, I don't want to go through with it. If I terminated the pregnancy, I would die a terrible death. I had to find Marcus. I had to remarry. I headed straight for the walk-up apartment building the Vance residents had recently moved into. My till panicked face was reflected on the rusty, mottled main entrance of the unit building, as if superimposed on that shriveled, purple, frozen face. I shivered in fear. Just then, laughter and chatter drifted from nearby. I hastily hid in the dark recess under the stairs. Peeking out, I saw Marcus and another girl approaching from outside. He was carrying groceries, listening intently to her speaking. I'll keep an eye on the project for you. You won't be inviting me to this dinner for nothing. Having just moved here, are uncle and aunt settling in okay? If you need anything, I can come over anytime. I've practiced my cooking skills quite a bit abroad these past few years, and I can let you try some today. The clear, elegant female voice carried a smile, her words graceful and composed. And, who was always aloof and proud, actually responded. I bit my lip, feeling a surge of frustration. The ink wasn't even dry on the divorce papers, and he already had someone new. But if I didn't remarry, I would lose everything and die destitute on the streets. Those scenes reappeared like pop-up windows infected with a virus, flashing rapidly. A line of colorful text wiggled like a caterpillar. Oh no, the outcome of divorce. I trembled all over. Fear descended like a massive black curtain, pressing down on me, making it impossible to breathe. Ugh. It was too terrifying. My survival instinct overrode everything. I gritted my teeth, then abruptly rushed out. Just as I was about to speak, click. The door shut. I stared at it, disheartened. Suddenly, the door opened again. A pair of long, straight legs stepped out. I was startled. Marcus stood in the hallway, his gaze, devoid of warmth, landing on my face, carrying the detachment of someone disturbed. What are you doing here? His tone was extremely cold. He had always been aloof and distant with people, but for the nearly a year we were married, whenever we were alone, his attitude was always gentle. It was the first time he had spoken to me with such chilling coldness. My heart tightened involuntarily, and my voice trembled. I came to find you. I want to. What? I can't hear you. I said remarry. I want to remarry you. I blurted out, closing my eyes. The hallway light was dim. The flicker of surprise in Marcus's eyes was gone in an instant, quick as an illusion. He didn't speak. The air became heavy, leaving only the stuffy, airless oppression of the hallway and my heart pounding like a drum. He glanced at the half-open door and closed it. His long legs moved, descending step by step, unhurried, with a silent sense of pressure, like the gathering low pressure before a storm. I held my breath, my nails digging into the soft flesh of my palms. The horrifying flashes of my death were still jarring my nerves. Marcus walked to stand before me, an arm's length away. His gaze locked onto me again, his eyes dark and cold as a deep pool. I'm sorry, Ms. Grace. His tone was calm, each word distinct. He paused, his voice devoid of emotion, simply stating with coldness, "The residence has fallen. I'm not worthy of someone as formidable as you." He said, "Not worthy." These 3 words were an icy weight crushing my heart. Shame instantly engulfed me. My face burned with heat. After the Vance residence filed for bankruptcy, when Marcus needed me most, I followed Richard and Catherine's arrangement and brought up divorce. And now, less than a week after getting the divorce papers, I was shamelessly here, begging to remarry. It was indeed abrupt and offensive. It might even make him think I was playing games with him. But, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that, it's because," I explained, flustered and desperate, but the words wouldn't come out. What could I say? That I had seen the future? That I would die a terrible death if I left him? He probably wouldn't think I was playing games, he'd think I was crazy, wouldn't he? My eyes welled up with tears, and the moment I blinked, they unexpectedly fell. "Why are you crying?" He lightly furrowed his brow, a hint of impatience in his voice. "Wasn't divorce what you wanted?" His sapple bobbed. He seemed about to say something more, but in the end, he just pressed his lips into a tight line. "We're over. Go home. A princess of the city's elite shouldn't be in a place like this." He gave a slight nod, a clear gesture of farewell. Just as he turned to leave, I practically lunged, wrapping my arms around his waist, and cried out tremblingly, "Don't go. I really need you." After I got the divorce papers, I actually thought of you every day, remembering how we were together. I realized I can't live without you. Can we please remarry? I can't be without you." Through the thin fabric, the muscles in his waist instantly tensed, conveying a sense of extreme restraint. He lowered his gaze, his eyes falling to my hands wrapped around him. There was scrutiny, inquiry, and a deep, hidden current swirling beneath an icy surface. A moment later, he raised his hand and slowly, one by one, pried my fingers away. My heart was in my throat. He turned his head to look back, his dark eyes unfathomable. "On what grounds?" His thin lips barely parted. His voice was as cold as a knife plunged into ice, piercing precisely into the deepest part of my heart. He paused, each word crystal clear, almost coldly questioning, "What is marriage to you? A tool to be summoned and dismissed at your whim?" His pace was unhurried, each word a blade. "Or do you think that because I, Marcus, have fallen on hard times, you, Ms. Grace, can manipulate me however you please?" Silence descended around us. I opened my mouth several times, but not a single sound escaped. "Yes. On what grounds?" Marcus watched my speechless reaction, and the last subtle ripple in his eyes completely vanished, leaving only a deep, pool-like stillness and weariness. "Can't answer?" He curled his lip mockingly. "Then, remarrying is possible." 3 words, decisive and leaving no room for doubt. The atmosphere grew taut. The words hovering on my lips were shattered by the weariness in his eyes. Just then, a faint sound came from upstairs. The tightly closed door was pushed open slightly again. The conversation inside was a little distant, yet it clearly reached my ears. "You're cooking personally today, what's that child doing running around in the hallway?" "I'll go find him." "No need, Aunt, I'll go." A clear, gentle female voice grew closer. I froze. It felt as if all the blood drained from my body instantly, my fingertips turning icy cold. For some reason, my heart tightened with a painful throb. I stared intently at the sliver of light from the door crack. Out of the corner of my eye, Marcus was still turned sideways, unmoving. His cold, almost scrutinizing gaze remained fixed on my face, as if he wanted to discern something from me. But what was he looking at? My embarrassment at being rejected? Or something else? I subconsciously pressed my slightly dry lips together, my gaze uncontrollably drifting back upstairs. The door was pushed open a bit more, and a slender, fair hand rested on the doorframe. The female voice spoke again, with a hint of intimate inquiry. "Marcus? Are you out there?" Marcus finally stopped looking at me. He straightened and turned around, his jawline taut, his tone decisive. "Go back. From now on, don't look for me again." Before he finished speaking, he lifted his foot to leave. But just as he stepped onto the first stair, I couldn't help but sniffle. He paused, his tall back stiffening for a moment, then he turned back, seemingly helpless, or perhaps impatient. I looked up at him eagerly, meeting his gaze, and mumbled timidly, I don't know how to get back. Where's your driver?" His brow furrowed slightly. I shook my head, my voice growing softer. "I came by bus." Marcus turned fully around. He stared at me fixedly, his Adam's apple bobbing slightly. "Why?" His voice was dry, carrying his usual coolness, yet it seemed to hold a hint of another emotion. I lowered my head, wringing my hands, feeling a strange sense of guilt, and answered like someone caught doing something wrong. I wanted to try. Try what? To see if I could manage life after remarrying, without a driver or a car, having to take the bus or subway. I explained honestly, casting an embarrassed glance at him. Just getting a head start on adapting. The air stilled for a moment. Marcus stared at me, his eyes as deep as a pool. Something seemed to flash across them, like a pebble dropped into a deep pond, creating a tiny ripple. In an instant, it was covered by ice again. I couldn't decipher his expression, only noting that his jaw was tense like a drawn bowstring. Tense, but still very handsome. That thought surprised even me. Upstairs, the light from the door crack flickered. The clear, elegant female voice spoke again, with a hint of confusion. Marcus? Are you still out there? The sound was like a switch being flipped. The indecipherable flicker in Marcus's eyes instantly froze, leaving only a coldness. He pulled at the corner of his lips, a cold curve mixed with an unreadable hint of mockery. You probably can't even read a bus stop sign fully, so what are you talking about adapting? Don't be naive. We're not on the same path anymore. Go back and live the life you're meant to live. With that, he didn't spare me another glance. He turned and strode up the stairs, his back resolute, without the slightest hesitation. I stood rooted to the spot. The door upstairs had already closed. The walk-up apartment building had poor soundproofing. In the hallway, I could faintly hear muffled conversations from inside. The wind should have been hot. So why did I feel so cold? My chest felt so constricted, and my nose burned. He seemed even angrier? But I was just telling the truth. Amidst the suffocating feeling, those pop-up window-like scenes flashed again. The difference was, this time I didn't remarry. Instead, I was pushed down the stairs by the man who should have been my second husband, while pregnant. Bright red blood spread rapidly beneath me. My eyes wide, I breathed my last, as my parents ran towards me, distraught, from not far away. This scene was more terrifying than dying destitute on the streets. I instinctively covered my abdomen. Let me go back and live the life I'm meant to live? No, no, no. I don't have a meant to live life. If I don't remarry him, I'll just die in various ways. He refuses to remarry because he must think I'm not sincere enough. I have to prove it to him. If he rejects me once, I'll go twice. If he rejects me twice, I'll go 4 times. Persistence would eventually pay off. However, I went again and again. Everyone upstairs and downstairs, even most of the neighbors in the older neighborhood, knew that Marcus's ex-wife was begging him to remarry, but still refused me with a cold face. Only occasionally, when I clumsily tried to help, his gaze would linger on me for a moment beneath his tightly furrowed brow, carrying a complex scrutiny. As if it was I who caused his family's bankruptcy, and not the absconding partner. William and Eleanor were still as kind as ever, but they also urged, you lived in luxury since childhood, Richard and Catherine wouldn't want you to suffer, and we don't want you to come back and suffer with us either. Look at your hands, just peeling garlic, and your nails are already chipped. Grace, please listen. Don't come any more starting tomorrow. I dismissed their words, smiling. But I don't feel like it's suffering at all. Life is full of firsts, after all. I'll try my best. That's what I said out loud. But the one actually skilled in the kitchen was Chloe. And I could only stand outside the kitchen, watching. There was nothing I could do. Lately, the slightest smell would churn my stomach. Watching and Chloe interact like family, my heart fee. D with a deep, unidentifiable mix of envy and bitterness. When no one was paying attention, I quietly slipped out the door. Just as I closed it, I looked up and saw Marcus, who had just returned. His eyes were cold, and his tone was even colder. What's wrong? I shook my head in defeat. I couldn't possibly tell him I felt so frustrated, could I? He stepped up the last 2 stairs, standing just a fist's length away from me. If you can't stand it, go back. His low, husky voice seemed to carry a hint of a sigh. I looked up in surprise, indignant. I'm not saying I can't handle hardship. This isn't even hardship. I just feel like I can't really help with anything. My voice trailed off, with a hint of barely perceptible dejection. I couldn't accept how useless I felt compared to Chloe. Chloe's family used to be neighbors with the Vance residents. She and Marcus were practically childhood friends who had grown up together. After high school, Chloe's family immigrated abroad, and she must have heard about the Vance residents' bankruptcy, which is why she specifically returned. Such an act of kindness in a time of need was far better than me, his ex-wife, who suggested divorce right after his bankruptcy. Anyway, I paused, enunciating each word. I'm not leaving. Unless you agree to remarry. After saying that, I immediately turned my face away. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I gritted my teeth to keep them from falling. His gaze swept over my eyes, and he remained silent. After a long moment, he finally spoke. Understood. Understood? What did he understand? I couldn't go into the kitchen not because I was incompetent, but because I had a little life inside me. You don't know anything at all. My morning sickness was getting worse. Catherine couldn't bear to watch and advised me to just use my pregnancy to force Marcus to remarry. I didn't agree. What if he was heartless enough to not even want the child? I couldn't risk the baby. Marcus had been insanely busy lately. I only saw him when I brought him meals. In the simple office, under the light, his silhouette as he worked at his desk was focused and solitary. The light and shadow outlined his profound features, a straight nose bridge, thin lips pressed together. I suddenly remembered that in the past, he would sit in the home office, just like this, engrossed in documents. And I would cuddle a pillow, nestled in the rocking chair beside him, watching him. I'd watch until I fell asleep, only to wake up in his arms. Thinking of this, my heart inexplicably fluttered. The past and present overlapped, giving me the illusion that we hadn't divorced. He was always reserved when out. Only I had seen him at his most unrestrained. Those indescribable nights were etched into my bones, making my face flush and my heart pound. What are you doing standing there? He looked up and noticed me, then got up and walked over. As he took the lunch container, his fingertips brushed mine inadvertently. He frowned. Are you not feeling well? Huh? No, I'm fine. I shook my head, puzzled. His cool hand covered my hot cheek, his face full of doubt, his eyes scrutinizing. Your face is very red. I'm really fine. I shyly avoided his gaze, but the heat spread from my cheeks to my earlobes. He stared at me, his gaze growing deeper, like a beast poised to strike. This turbulent, intensely aggressive look was too familiar. So familiar that my heart threatened to pound out of control. After a moment, his Adam's apple bobbed up and down, his voice slightly hoarse. It's late. Go back. What about you? Are you still working? He walked back, and I followed behind him, hands clasped behind my back, shaking my head as I said, then I'm not leaving either. It's too dark outside, I'm scared. I want you to walk me. Under the spotlights, one long and one short shadow intermittently intertwined. After a while, I heard his reply, as you wish. With his tacit permission, bringing him me. ALS became my excuse to stay. After he ate, he buried himself in work again. I rested my chin in my hands, gazing at him for a long time, completely captivated. His eyes, beneath thick, long lashes, held a starlight. I loved seeing my reflection in his eyes, as if I were the only one there. And those thin, warm lips, he always liked to tentatively taste them first. Sometimes, unable to resist my pleas, even someone as seemingly aloof as he could utter a word or two of endearment. My thoughts drifted from memory back to the present, and as if possessed, I called out to him, Marcus. Marcus. I called again. Marquez? He looked up from his documents, gazing at me helplessly. What is it? I leaned closer, asking with utmost sincerity, isn't how we are now good? Why exactly won't you remarry me? If you remarry me, with my family's help, many things would go smoothly, and besides, Grace. He interrupted, his gaze heavy like mist. Have you ever considered what if my family also falls? My heart sank. The images that had popped up earlier flashed in my mind. There's no permanent support, he said, his voice cold and hard. Relying on yourself is more reliable than relying on others. After speaking, his expression softened slightly, and his voice became gentler, carrying a hint of apology. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Your support will always be there. He added, his gaze holding something profound. Seeing the sincerity in his eyes, it felt as if warmth surged into my heart. See, this was the Marcus I married. He was always this affectionate with me. His aloofness was just a facade he showed to the outside world. I shook my head dismissively, smiling and encouraging him, then keep going. I'll wait for you to make a comeback, wait for you to become a support for others. He suddenly smiled, a very faint smile that was nonetheless dazzling. I don't intend to be anyone else's support. You have your family, and in the future, you'll have the rest. Of his words were very soft, like a sigh, and I didn't catch them. When I looked up again, he was already focused on his documents. It was as if the tenderness and unfinished words from just now had been my imagination. I looked at his handsome profile, unable to tear my gaze away. It was as if a voice was softly whispering, just watching him like this seems pretty good too. 11 I knew Marcus was capable. but I was afraid I wouldn't be able to wait. So, I secretly asked the uncles and influential figures I knew in the city's elite circles not to make things too difficult for Marcus, without telling Richard and Catherine. If a project had good value, they should give him a hand. To my surprise, Richard was furious when he found out. His bankruptcy is his own fault for poor judgment of character. For a businessman, excessive trust in others is a major taboo. You even want to use your family's connections and resources? Grace, you're harming him, not helping him. If he truly has ability, he should climb back up himself and marry you again. The conversation ended on a sour note. But I hadn't expected the consequence of angering Richard to be an arranged blind date. Catherine lied, telling me it was to ease my morning sickness, and that she'd specifically found a private club for us to have dinner. It wasn't until I saw the woman seated in the private room that I realized what was happening. Almost instinctively, I turned to flee. Grace! Catherine grabbed me, whispering in my ear, Richard and I are doing this for your own good. When we initially had you marry Marcus, it was because we saw that marrying him would ensure your protection. Now that the Vance residence has fallen, you'll only suffer if you stay with him. You can keep this child if you wish. Richard and I discussed it, and rather than marrying you off again, it would be better to marry a man who moved into our family home. That way, neither you nor the child would suffer. But if you want to Marcus, Richard won't agree. Ethan has a good character, Richard has thoroughly vetted him. She half pulled, half coaxed, sweetheart, just sit for 10 minutes. Be a good girl. The words be a good girl felt like a huge rock crushing down on me. I stiffly sat down. In my mind, the two scenes, dying destitute on the streets and falling to a miscarriage, lingered stubbornly. The door opened. Sorry, I'm late. A gentle voice spoke as a tall, slender man entered. He had a refined, handsome face, gold-rimmed glasses, and a gentle smile on his lips. My pupils constricted instantly. It was him. The villain who was scheming for my inheritance from the vision. He took a seat, his gaze falling on me as he considerately asked, Ms. Grace, you seem unwell? The private room is a bit stuffy. Perhaps I could accompany you outside for some fresh air? His tone was soft, so thoughtful. But to me, he was clearly a spitting cobra. No. I hastily waved my hand, my voice wavering. Excuse me, I need to use the restroom first. With that, I abruptly stood up, practically fleeing out of the private room. Watching the door slowly close, I was still breaking out in a cold sweat. Quite efficient. A familiar, cool voice spoke from behind me. I turned back in alarm. It was Marcus. He stood a few steps away, his gaze seemingly casually sweeping over the half-closed private room door behind me. Muffled laughter and chatter faintly drifted from inside. Marcus's lips curved into a slightly mocking smile, his eyes dark. Last night you were still looking for me. To remarry. Today you're busy meeting the next one? Well, good for you. He paused, his voice suddenly deepening. You've returned to your original life. Hearing that, my heart became even more chaotic. Immense grievance and fear surged within me. No, it's not like that. I rushed over and grabbed the front of his shirt, my voice trembling like a sieve, laced with a sob. The person in there. My Richard and Catherine arranged for me to meet him. I don't want to see him at all. Please, take me away, okay? The cool, crisp scent of pine mixed with his presence somehow made me feel safe. Marcus raised his hand, intending to pull away from me, but he paused when he touched my trembling, icy fingertips. What are you afraid of? His brow furrowed even deeper, his voice laced with suspicion. I opened my mouth, about to explain. From inside the private room, the gentle, concerned voice grew closer. Ms. Grace has been gone for a while. I hope she didn't get lost. Should I go check on her? Footsteps approached the door. I clutched Marcus's shirt tighter in fright, as if clinging to my only lifeline. His brow lightly furrowed, and he gave me a deep look, his gaze sharp, as if trying to pierce through my thoughts. Then, he gripped my wrist with his other hand and strode towards the end of the corridor. He pushed open an inconspicuous door and led me into the supply closet, which reeked of air freshener. The space was cramped and dim, with only a small window letting in faint light. My back pressed against the cold wall. The footsteps outside gradually faded. Fear receded, leaving behind a pounding heart and a familiar flutter. In the darkness, his slow, steady breaths were incredibly close. Marcus, I gasped softly. The moment I opened my mouth, a warm hand abruptly covered it. A thumb with a slight callus rested on my lips. He was incredibly close, his rapid, strong heartbeat seeming to collide with mine. For a moment, my mouth went dry, and I licked my lips, my tongue accidentally brushing his palm. His body instantly stiffened, his eyes suddenly burning with an incredible, disbelieving intensity. Amidst my pounding heart, I felt his breath suddenly grow heavy and his body tense. "Grace," he hissed, his voice low and guttural. "What are you doing?" I nervously tried to explain, my slightly moving lips brushing his palm again. He snatched his hand back as if burned. "After getting divorced, you've learned these tricks now?" His voice was cold and hoarse. I quickly defended myself. "No, I haven't. I didn't mean to. I just suddenly felt thirsty." My voice was a mere whisper, and my cheeks burned. He stared at me intently, his eyes unfathomable in the dim light. At that moment, the supply closet was remarkably quiet, both inside and out. So quiet that I could hear our breaths mingling. After a long moment, a faint sigh escaped. "I need an explanation. Why are you afraid of him? What did he do to you?" His low, pressing voice echoed in the cramped space. I looked up at Marcus's face, so close to mine, my heart pounding uncontrollably. The terrifying images flooded back, and the fear I had just suppressed surged again instantly. Fear overrode all other concerns. Whether he believed me or not, I had to just say it. I took a deep breath, my fingertips icy cold, my voice trembling. I saw some things. Anyway, he's not a good person. He's approaching me with ulterior motives, he's scheming to take my inheritance. If I marry him, I'll die, and even Archie." Bang! Just as the words "our child" were about to burst out, the supply closet door, which wasn't locked, was suddenly pushed open. The doorknob hit the wall with a loud crash. Dazzling light poured in. Marcus and I simultaneously turned our heads in surprise. Standing in the light outside the door, Catherine's face was full of heartache and disappointment. She reached out, pulled me out, and shielded me behind her, then questioned Marcus with confusion and strong condemnation. "Marcus, do you know what you're doing? When needed support the most, you repeatedly refused her attempts to reconcile, saying yourselves that you were over. Since you've already decided to let go, what are you doing now? Leading her on? Torturing her? Are you satisfied seeing my daughter distraught over you?" I was forcibly taken away. Catherine's questions were each word a dagger to the heart. Even I felt a sharp pain in my chest hearing them. I didn't know how Marcus felt. I only remembered that before I left, the light in his eyes gradually sank into an abyss, becoming increasingly cold and resolute, like a completely frozen, stagnant pool. Perhaps he hated me even more now? Did he believe what I said in the supply closet? How much of it did he believe? Would he think I was talking nonsense? Or playing some kind of trick? My mind was filled with questions. And then, after leaving the private club that day, I couldn't find Marcus, whether I went to the Vance residence or the office. Eleanor said he had gone on a business trip. But if he was on a business trip, why didn't he tell me? Why didn't he reply to my messages? I figured he didn't believe what I said. Everything I had done earlier seemed to be in vain. Richard and Catherine brought Ethan to meet me, wanting me to get to know each other with him. In the restaurant, he picked up a piece of meat and placed it in front of me. Without a second thought, I pushed it aside. He didn't seem to mind, a gentle, polite smile always on his lips, as he softly asked, "Grace, your name is beautiful. Would it be offensive if I called you that?" "Extremely offensive," I retorted coldly, crossing my arms. "It's more appropriate for you to call me Ms. Grace." "All right, whatever you say." His smile was gentle, his tone full of indulgence and pampering. Yet, my scalp tingled, a chilling sensation of being prey. Gritting my teeth, I stated directly, "I'm here to make one thing clear to you. You'd better remember it." "Certainly, please go on." "I don't care what agreement you've reached with Richard and Catherine, but I will absolutely not marry you, and you can forget about moving into our family home. The only person I'll marry is Marcus." "Oh, really?" The gentle smile on his face didn't falter, but his eyes deepened. "You care about him that much? Too bad he doesn't want you. What business is it of yours?" I stood up abruptly in anger, hands on my hips. "Yes, I care about him, and yes, I like him." "You." The moment I blurted it out, I froze. What had I just said? "I like Marcus?" The thought flashed, and my mind exploded with fireworks. Instantly, all the details of our interactions after marriage flooded back like a tide, his tenderness, his sense of responsibility, his endurance and restraint, even the concern hidden beneath his deliberate aloofness. Yes, if I didn't like him, I wouldn't remember so many details about him. If I didn't like him, I wouldn't feel happy just looking at him. A small act of tenderness from him would make my chest warm. A single promise would give me peace. If this wasn't love, what was it? My desire to remarry him, besides being driven by the fear of death, was perhaps also my instinctive urge to be back by his side? So what? I had someone I liked. I liked Marcus. This realization made my blood instantly boil. It came with a sense of sudden clarity and excitement, and an even deeper feeling of injustice. I liked him so much, how could he reject me? After warning Ethan, I grabbed my bag and left without another word. The top priority was to find Marcus. Wasn't he angry that I suggested divorce when he went bankrupt? So if I genuinely liked him, what was there for him to be angry about? Hiding from me, ignoring me, what was that compared to dying from freezing, falling, or a miscarriage? These were trivial matters. This minor setback couldn't discourage me. I regrouped, with an unprecedented, almost jubilant determination, and immediately ran to find Marcus. The midsummer rain came suddenly. It poured down, and I jogged along, finding shelter under an overhang. I brushed off the raindrops and traced my abdomen, which was just starting to show. Though it was only a slight curve, I was already looking forward to Marcus's expression when he found out I was pregnant. Just then, a couple, seemingly, walked by sharing an umbrella. The familiar clear male voice and the clear, elegant female voice spoke. "You hold it, I'll duck under cover next to you." "How can I do that? You specifically brought the umbrella for me because you were worried I'd get wet. How could I leave you halfway?" "It's different. You're pregnant." Marcus's words struck me like a bolt of lightning, catching me off guard. Pregnant? Was pregnant too? Was it his? This suspicion pierced my recently hopeful heart like an ice pick. "I'm not scared. Why are you scared? If you keep being so finicky, I'll just jump on you and make you carry me across. That way, neither of us will get wet." The sound of footsteps splashing in puddles mingled with their voices. I was chilled to the bone. It was Marcus and Chloe. Their conversation, every word, drilled into my ears. Had he been with Chloe all these days he was avoiding me? His so-called business trip was to be with her? While I was suffering horribly from morning sickness, were he and she having a romantic time together? In that instant, my mind went blank. The fear brought by those death scenes was, at this moment, submerged by an almost overwhelming despair and sense of betrayal. All sounds around me seemed to be sucked away. The world contained only me. Tears flowed uncontrollably, like a broken dam. I wrapped my arms around myself and slowly crouched down against a wall pillar. Rain splattered my dress, and a chill spread from my feet to every part of my body. A dull ache in my abdomen seemed to remind me that my hurried rush to confess my feelings had made me look like a clown. Suddenly, a pair of wet black leather shoes entered my vision. That voice, which stung me, dropped from above. "Where do you feel unwell?" Marcus's voice was strained, tinged with a rare hint of panic. I didn't look up. Letting him see me so tear-streaked and miserable would only make me feel more ashamed. He and Chloe. And a child. What did that make me? And what about the child in my belly? A hand, bones distinctly visible, reached out, attempting to help me up. "Don't touch me." I slapped it away, stumbling and falling to the ground. I just looked even more wretched. My tears surged even harder. I used the wall column to stand, holding my breath as I backed away, putting distance between us. His hand froze in midair, his brows furrowed. "Grace? What's wrong with you?" I sniffled hard, my voice hoarse. "I'm asking you, have you been with Chloe these past few days?" "What? You?" "I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know. Don't tell me." I covered my ears, crying out as I interrupted him. Usually, I loved listening to him speak. But now, his voice felt like daggers piercing my heart. "You won't remarry me, not because you're angry with me, and not because of the bankruptcy, right? I thought you were avoiding me because of what Catherine said that day, but that's not it, is it? I'm so stupid. Right after we divorced, a childhood friend appeared by your side, and how could I be so foolish to think nothing was going on between you two? Asking you to remarry me was the biggest mistake I've ever made. Don't worry, I won't bother you again." After blurting everything out, I hastily wiped away my tears and turned to rush into the rain. I had barely taken half a step when a strong force pulled me back fiercely. "Are you done?" He held me tightly in his arms, his voice cold and hard. "You said all that just to tell me you regret asking me to remarry? You think you can just say your piece and run off? Things aren't that easy." Hearing his words, I felt even more wronged. I stomped hard on his foot, and while he was distracted, I broke free, shrinking back into the corner as if avoiding a ghost. He didn't come closer, just sighed helplessly. "Do you want to hear my explanation?" "I don't. I was in the mountains these past few days, and there was no signal." He cut off my refusal, pulled out his phone, and with long fingers, quickly opened the screen, shoving the chat SC Rain in front of my eyes. I reported my itinerary before I left, and even sent the flight confirmation. Didn't you see it? The screen's light made my eyes ache and sting. Clearly displayed were the messages he'd sent days ago, and below them, a series of failed delivery notifications with red exclamation marks. My heart sank. I had reviewed the chat history countless times. How could I have missed it? My phone. In my confusion, a blurred image flashed through my mind. These past few days, Catherine had always used my phone for online shopping. Could it be? What I could think of, Marcus would only figure out faster. I looked up in astonishment, meeting his eyes, which were filled with helplessness and bitterness. So, your trip to the mountains. Was it for Chloe? My voice trembled. What in your little head? He almost laughed in exasperation. I went into the mountains to investigate Ethan. Didn't you say he was plotting against you? Chloe has nothing to do with me. You jerk. She's pregnant, I choked. A helpless sigh escaped him. See. You heard what I just said, and you're overthinking it again. I don't know who the father of her child is, and I'm not interested. Eleanor might know, you can ask her. Her return to the country just happened to coincide with something happening to our family. She was lending a hand out of old neighborly ties. I suspect the main reason for her return is probably to avoid someone. In short, he paused slightly, enunciating each word heavily, a stifled feeling of being misunderstood in his voice. Her affairs have nothing to do with me. He deliberately emphasized his words, conveying both emphasis and the choked emotion of being misunderstood. I was completely stunned, my astonishment piling up layer by layer. Chloe was pregnant, but not with his child. He had been avoiding me these past few days. No, he had never avoided me, nor was he with Chloe, but rather investigating Ethan. The things I said in the supply closet, he listened to? He believed it all? Without a shred of doubt? Then what was all this tossing and turning, this heartbroken agony I'd been through for these past few days? Had I just cried for nothing? The wall I had just built around my heart suddenly cracked, the fissure spreading until it ultimately collapsed with a crash. The immense amount of information left me completely flustered and at a loss. He reached out to me, his deep eyes fixed on mine. His voice was low, tinged with helplessness and bitterness, yet mixed with a hint of indulgence. Now, can you come over here? I bit my lip, not moving. He sighed softly, as if at a loss, then strode forward and, without another word, pulled me into his embrace. His warm palm instantly enveloped my cold hands. After the rain stopped, Marcus took me back to the walk-up apartment building. Eleanor and Chloe weren't there, the house was quiet. Go take a hot shower. He handed me a misty blue silk nightgown. My face flushed. Before we divorced, I used to love wearing his clothes as nightgowns. They were loose and nearly knee-length, and smelled completely of him. Need help? He lowered his voice, a hint of his long-lost, familiar teasing in his tone. My ears burned, and I snatched the clothes, fleeing into the bathroom in a rush. When I came out after showering, there was a freshly prepared cold remedy drink on the table. Staring at the brown liquid in the cup, I slowly came back to my senses, a realization dawning on me. Marcus's attitude towards me seemed to have reverted to how it was before the divorce. Did this change in him mean he agreed to remarry? Drink your medicine, just in case. He walked over, toweling his wet hair, and offered me the cup. I didn't take it. I looked up and met his gaze, asking with a desperate resolve, will we remarry? A complex expression flickered across his handsome brow, as if he were weighing something or carefully choosing his words. He furrowed his brows, his eyes dark. Not yet. Wait. I won't wait. I cut off his potential lengthy explanation, my tone resolute. I want it now. Right now, I can only tell you. His apple bobbed, his voice deep but exceptionally clear. No. We silently challenged each other, our gazes clashing in the air. Faintly, I seemed to guess what he was concerned about. But I was afraid I couldn't wait. Gritting my teeth, I steeled myself. Tracing my abdomen, I feigned lightness and said, all right, if that's how it is. Then, I'll find a different father for the child. As my last word faded, a heavy silence fell. All expression instantly froze on Marcus's face, his pupils suddenly widening. He stared at me, deeply shaken, his breathing halted. You. What did you say? His voice was hoarse and broken. Veins bulged on the hand holding the cup, knuckles white. Say it again? Each word was distinct, laced with a tremble on the verge of losing control. His intense gaze slowly dropped, fixating on my hand tracing my abdomen. His pupils contracted sharply again. He put down the cup and then knelt. With a nearly reverent tremble, he carefully covered my abdomen with his hand. The scalding warmth of his palm came through my clothes. When did this happen? He looked up, his voice terribly hoarse, mixed with an uncontrollable sense of dread. Why didn't you tell me? A wave of hurt and panic surged back instantly, my eyes reddening. But before I could speak, he murmured, blaming himself, it's my fault. I thought I was doing what was best for you, but I was only hurting you. Eleanor was right. When you needed me most, His apple bobbed, his voice strained. How wronged you must have felt, coming to me while pregnant. How could I have rejected you again and again? His self-reproach, guilt, and heartache were palpable. My heart clenched. I felt for myself, and I felt for him too. Suddenly, he stood up, scooped me into his arms, and strode out. Startled, I urgently asked, what are you doing? To the hose. Pidal. Huh? You're pregnant, and you were drenched in rain and fell. Where else would we go but the hospital? The doctor said mild cramps during pregnancy were normal and advised me to rest more and stay in good spirits. Marcus remained silent, picked up the medical report, and led me out of the exam room. I discreetly glanced at him. I saw his thin lips pressed tightly together, the corners of his eyes red, his expression solemn. I had no idea what he was thinking. He took me home. As soon as he opened the door, I heard Richard and Catherine in the living room mentioning the Zhou family. I can't believe Ethan was switched at birth. Thankfully, Grace didn't take a liking to him. I heard Marcus found out. The true son of the Zhou family was picked up and raised by an old couple and has been living in a remote mountain area. So, Marcus has done a great favor for the Zhou family now? Yes. Richard grumbled, seemingly unconvinced, that kid really is lucky. Mr. Robert just called, the Zhou family's new project is already set to be handed over to Marcus's company. If Truly makes a comeback, then is remarrying Grace. Founding a business is easy, but maintaining it is hard. We'll see. My heart raced as I listened, and I looked at Marcus with delight. He only squeezed my palm, his eyes firm. Trust me, wait for me. I will always be your rock. Later, Marcus and Richard talked in the home office all afternoon. When they emerged, both of them were beaming. Neither would reveal what they discussed. A few days later, the Zhou family held a reunion banquet. The imposter was taken away by the police. He was taken away because the police discovered he was an accomplice to the partner who betrayed Marcus. The partner wanted money, while he wanted project technology, aiming to seize power within the Zhou family. Little did he know, before he could lay the groundwork, the truth came out. The day we registered our remarriage, I saw those pop-up screens again. This time, I didn't die. In the scene, Marcus and I were embracing. Not far away, a small figure held a pinwheel, laughing. The scene was warm and joyful. At that moment, the strange, colorful characters wiggled down crookedly. Oh, there's a sweetheart with a daddy and mommy now. I jolted awake. In disbelief, I looked down at my full-term pregnant belly. Could it be? Could it be? The reason I could see these pop-up screens was because of the baby inside me? Was my child a seer? As the thought just formed, my belly started twitching from kicks. As if responding to my guess, I told Marcus about this astonishing discovery. His eyes gleamed brightly, filled with immense pride. Our daughter will be exceptionally gifted. Me.